Okay, so for my FMP this year, I'm going to be making a documentary called The Next Steps. Ooh, there you go. The idea. My idea is to conceive a documentary on people who have suffered from a stroke and the consequences of this terrible affliction. The film will include messages of optimism and hope to emphasise the importance of considering a healthy lifestyle. What I mean by this is the main sort of underlying message of the film will be that for sufferers from a stroke, it's important to sort of stay optimistic, because a lot of what can happen after someone's had a stroke is that they can feel quite depressed and low, and their life can be quite bad. But what's important, what I want to include in my documentary is sort of a bit of a motivational thing, just to keep them hopeful, because there is light at the end of the tunnel with this, and there is a road to recovery. Okay, my logline for my documentary is it's a hopeful, conscientious documentary on the trials and tribulations of stroke victims. Okay, I'll also be doing some stuff with the Stroke Association, which you've helped with, and basically that should really provide some insightful interviews and should contribute to, finding out different perspectives of a stroke and how the stroke victims feel, their emotions and what's going on in their lives and how it's affected their lives. Okay, and my question that I'll be trying to answer in the documentary is, what are the emotional and intellectual repercussions of a stroke, and what does it really leave behind? Because, there's so much looking at the symptoms of a stroke, but it's what actually happens after someone's had a stroke and what happens to them emotionally and how it can really affect them and others around them, the family members, friends. Okay, so getting down to sort of the technicalities of the project, the planning, I'll need to quite carefully plan and structure my FMP. This will just consist of important dates and understanding the subject entirely, because I need to really do my research to prevent me from going in and doing an interview and then not knowing what I'm going to do, because that's going to be wasting their time, and I don't think I'll be finding out what I'll need to find out without acknowledging all this important information. Okay. Pre-production materials, that's just going to consist of the script I'm going to make, because last year what I found that I suffered last year is I hadn't written a formal script for the documentary, and in my documentary there's going to be narration throughout the entirety of it, and I think it's important to build a script and then obviously record it and add it to the film. And I also need to do some work with Adobe Premiere Pro. I think I have developed quite thoroughly over the past year, but I think there's still so much. Premiere Pro is such a big piece of software, and I'll also be doing some stuff on After Effects, because I tapped on that last year a little bit, but I'd really like to learn more about it. Okay, post-production materials, that's just going to be Premiere Pro and After Effects again, because I was considering using Sony Vegas, but then I was just like, it'd be better off using Premiere Pro. Okay, timescales. What I have here is I've basically got a developed timescale of what I'm going to be doing throughout the project. So far, I've just went on to research. I am very much on time and everything with everything I'm doing, including all of this, and I should be able to stay on track if I just stick to this and look over it on a weekly basis. Okay. Important dates, research, I've just started, and I'm on track with that. I hopefully want to move on to experimentation on the 25th of this month, and I think that's definitely doable. Production will be on the 8th of April. That's also, I'm going to utilise my Easter break around this project, and that will be quite good, because I think it's a week, and it doesn't sound like a lot of time, but if you make use out of it, I could really get down with production on that. And then
you get 2 weeks for Easter.
2 weeks, so even more, it's important just to do that and use that time wisely. And then evaluate and reflect. I really want to make sure there's not a lot of stuff that goes wrong in the project. I want to make sure I don't make the same mistakes as I did last year, but especially, it's obviously it's a learning process, and I'll develop throughout it. And I'll of course, I doubt it will be 100% perfect, and I'll be able to reflect and basically learn from it. Why? Why have I chosen to do it on strokes? Well, both my uncle and my granddad have both suffered from a stroke, and what it had quite a deep effect on me as a person, and I think that's making a documentary surrounding about strokes. I think will really put out to people, especially my age, about strokes. Because I feel like a lot of people, that they're just like, oh, we can prevent a stroke from happening, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. But I think a lot of people have strokes, they don't understand, well, they don't understand, but people around them don't understand that they need to take care of them, because recovery is a long process, and it really helps if you have friends and family supporting you throughout the way. And ever since both my granddad and my uncle had a stroke, it's really affected me quite meaningfully. But yeah. And also another thing, I think I had it back here, but my target audience for this project is going to be similar to last year. It's going to be all ages, and that's something I really want to hit on. So I'm going to have to include, obviously, it's going to have to interest young people as well as interest older people. So I want a wide range. And lastly, the equipment that I'll be using. That will be, I'll use a Canon 5D Mark II. I am considering using a Blackmagic camera, but I think it would have to be, I think for the moment the Canon 5D Mark II works with convenience, and then I'm just going to use the Zoom 4HN and all, well, most of the equipment that we have here, and all interview settings. So I've developed a bit of a plan of how I'm going to utilise all this equipment and execute it, and that will just go into the experimentation phase pretty much. But yeah, any questions?
Yeah, okay, well done. I think the good thing about this is you're going to be working with a client that you've got already established relationship. You'll need to learn some of the Stroke Association language, so they're now called stroke survivors.
Yeah, okay.
Things like that. When you sit with them and do some research about who the target audience is, they will help you with the messaging.
Okay.
They're quite keen on the recovery part.
Yeah, which is pretty much what I want to hit on here. It's all about like recovering from a stroke, and it's very, very convenient that this client that I'm going to be working with, that's exactly what they wanted too. So it's very similar on what I intend to do in this project. But I've also, with the client-based project, what I'm going to try and do is I'm obviously going to hit the criteria for what they want to do, but at the same time, I'll probably make 2 edits at the very end of it. One for them, which specifically does everything that they want it to have and includes, and then one for me, which includes some other interviews with my family members.
Well, there's no reason why you could incorporate them into it in the edit.
Okay. It just all depends what they're really looking for.
Yeah, you think about stuff like model release forms.
Yeah.
And you have to have arrange production meetings and all that sort of jazz. Stylistically, how do you see it working?
How do I see it working? I want it to be, I think a big inspiration for this was a couple of weeks ago I sat down and I watched a documentary on BBC Two. It was a Louis Theroux, and it was about euthanasia.
Oh, is that the one in
America?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was so profound that I was just like, I want my documentary to stylistically be the way he does it.
It was intense, wasn't it?
It was so intense, but at the same time, the way that Louis Theroux, he's probably one of my most, he's been a big inspiration on this project and last year with Brexit. And I love the way he asks questions. I think his approach to asking and interviewing people is very, very unique. He does it in a way which is quite friendly and naive, but it's,
He knows exactly what he's doing.
He knows exactly what he's doing, but he does it in a very careful way.
With something like this, you probably wouldn't front it, would you? You probably,
No.
reading the film, you probably just have it driven by the interview pieces.
Exactly, yeah. I'm going to have a casting process of who I want the narrator to be, and I want that person to obviously have a lot of cadence and articulation with how they speak. I used my friend last year, and I'll probably cast him again, but I'm going to broaden my horizons this year and just have a class.
You know, open it up to people that might be interested in doing voice therapy work like this. You just got to listen out to the type of voices you want, and again, that would probably take a bit of a focus group as well. Or
Yeah, exactly.
or a survey. Okay. Good. I think it'd be good. I think it'd be interesting. All right. Cool.